open up my presentation by giving you an introduction and greeting in my own native language. Makwam, hinomopu yukaremba, deshurtai, dewem, na dewem, lin, thirpewe, kimbae, wehe, imbok nahe, ete chiki. So basically what I did was wish you a welcoming, good morning, introduce myself, and ask the spirits to bless us and for you to have a very good meeting. So, I'm very honored and privileged to be here. Thank you for the invitation, Cheryl and Kevin, mostly Yuset and Gliha, and the Native Learning Center for providing this space and the good food that we're going to eat today, as well as providing me an opportunity to present to you, but hopefully engage with you throughout the day. And I know you have a fairly packed agenda. I will be here for today. I do have a conference call that I gotta get on, but I will be around and available. And just as I was speaking with this gentleman here, I am very interested not only to talk with you about our programs and the different opportunities that exist, but also to learn from you and to hear from you how we can better serve your communities, and if you're having struggles with our programs. So, as I had introduced myself earlier, my name is Lynn Trujillo. I'm a member of Sandia Pueblo. I am a National Native American Coordinator. So many of you may know my colleague by the name of Ted Bulow, who is stationed out in Denver. So I work with Ted. We work as national office employees, and I'm housed out in Albuquerque, New Mexico, out of the state office. But I have the privilege and the honor to work with tribes and tribal organizations and individual people across the nation, as well as provide service to all our state offices and field offices throughout the nation. So when they're dealing with an issue or need some assistance, that's what I'm there for. My primary responsibility is for the rural housing service programs, which I'll be talking with you about. And I do have a couple other programs that I will run through because I think part of this, and I will be at that HUD ONAP training as well, because I think part of housing is just not housing, it's infrastructure, it's economic development. And so I also have a couple of programs that I'll highlight, as well as there's some handout one-pagers on the programs that I'm going to talk about. And I will also talk a little bit about the budget, where I can, and give you an idea of what our funding levels have looked like, at least for the past fiscal year, and where we're headed to. So I was telling the gentleman here in the front that I should have entitled my project The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. That would have probably been a little bit more appropriate. And please, if you have questions, feel free to interrupt me. I don't like just talking to an audience. So here's several ways that I'm going to touch upon, and there are many, many programs under the umbrella of rural development programs, which are basically under rural housing services programs, RUS programs, rural utility service programs, and then we have our rural business component programs here. And I was asked to talk a little bit about some home ownership programs that we have, as well as infrastructure related programs. Our most popular, let me just get a show of hands here. How many people know of rural development? And how many utilize our programs in their tribal communities? Okay, great. We can always do a better job. So our most popular program is our 502 Direct Home Loan Program. I think important to know, unlike NAHASDA type funding, this program runs directly between someone who is looking to buy a home. So our funds don't run directly to a tribe in this scenario. I understand that can be a challenge sometimes. It's not as popular as NAHASDA funding, but it is a good program and something to consider. especially where you may have a segment of population that's low or lower income. It's a very affordable program. Right now we have a fixed interest rate of 3.25. I know that I think market is under 4% right now, and it's been a good thing where we've been seeing the interest rates dive with regard to home ownership. But that fixed interest rate could be as low as 1%, and that's if the applicant qualifies for a subsidy. And that's where the applicant would work with the RD office. They look at their situation, and it's basically helping the new homeowner to get into a home. What's going to make it affordable? It's a 33-year payback, but they can extend it out to 38 years if someone is unable to pay it back. We do have eligibility requirements, and those really, that's where you need to work with your local field offices to get an idea, because it's very dependent on where the homeowner wants to purchase the property, and they look at that area. We have certain property requirements. Must be in an eligible area, rural, which most tribal lands are in. And these homes are fairly modest homes. We take applications year-round, and one of the things I think people like is that there's no down payment required. So, great program. We are doing better to try to get this program out onto tribal trust lands. I know that that's been a bit of a challenge, but fortunately, through the work of Ted Bulow and the leadership at the time, which I'm sure many of you know, former Administrator Tony Hernandez, who used to be my boss, we're very supportive in making improvements to bringing home ownership out onto the reservation. And just to give you an idea of the amount of programming that was done in FY16, USDA did about $124 million of this loan. That incorporates data both on reservation, on tribal trust land, and off reservation. Another program that we have that's for individuals and families is our guaranteed home loan. This one, the applicant works directly with our approved lenders. USDA guarantees 90% of the loan. I know that's not as attractive as the 100% that is offered by HUD, but this is an alternative and something to look at. And this program is really for those segments of population, maybe in your community, who have a little bit more modest income and not on the low end side. See, so all loans are for 30 years with fixed term rates. Again, no down payment is required for this program. And we're really trying to get this product a little bit more out within tribal communities. And so one of the things that we've done, or I should say the good work of some folks in South Dakota and leadership, is we have a pilot program for guaranteed programs. One of the issues that we encounter when lending out on tribal trust land is the availability of having a secured interest, right? A leasehold. And so this pilot looks at ways to encourage lenders to be able to lend out on tribal reservations and not be afraid of what happens in the event of delinquency, default, foreclosure, and I can't recoup on my loan. This pilot is in its very early stages. I've been working with the state acting director there and the housing staff, and they're really trying to find different ways to get rural development programs and housing programs out in South Dakota. And the tribe that signed on to this MOU is Sistine Wapiton, who many of you may know the housing director there. But we are looking for additional states for participation. If that's something that you're interested in or would like to talk about it a little bit further or explore, please contact me. But it's just maybe a viable option for you. Another program that we do have, which is not within our single-family housing program, it's under our multifamily housing program, is the 523 Mutual Self-Help Technical Assistance Grant Program, Sweat Equity Program. And grant recipients receive funds to help folks within their community carry out construction projects on their homes. So they look for the applicants, they get them together, they get them working, and everybody works on each other's homes, which that sweat equity reduces the total value of the home for which the applicant will go out and get a 502 mortgage. It's a really great program. If many of you know Michael Zuni from Michael Chavez from Zuni Pueblo, they have applied for this, received this twice, and our building will build, I think at the end of both, we'll build around something like 20 homes within their community. Great program. What's the problem? Great program, grant means that it is oversubscribed and there's very little money left for it. So, you know, if you have a good relationship with the folks in your state office and they know that there's grantees out there who are looking for tribes to participate, get in. Because it's my understanding that once you get in, you'll probably stay in there and be able to participate in this program. And just to know, Indian tribes and nonprofits are eligible applicants. The other program, which is really popular for rural development, and this is not home ownership but rehabilitation, which probably many of you have existing stock or people in your community who need rehabilitation to their homes. We have a 504 grant and loan program. The grant program, 62 and over, very low income, and it's to remove health and safety hazards. There's a maximum on the grant, and it's a once in a lifetime grant. So it's up to $7,500. But usually, most folks make it for $74.99. The reason being is because anything less than $7,500 is secured by a note, instead of having to get a leasehold mortgage and to deal with the servicing requirements. So, repayment of property sold within less than 3 years, and the grant can also be combined with the loan. Our loan program assists very low-income homeowners. The maximum amount of the loan is $20,000. And so if somebody qualifies, if you have a person who is 62 plus, who's very low income, who can qualify for the grant and needs a little bit of loan, the maximum combined is $27,500. With respect to the loan, the interest rate is fixed at 1% and a repayment over 20 years. And with this program, applications are made year-round. And this is a really popular program, our 504 program, especially with respect to the repairs and grants. I believe last fiscal year, they did over $900,000 out in Indian country, which is not enough, right? It's never enough. It's a very oversubscribed program, but something to consider. Another way to look for rehabilitation funding for homes is a 533 Housing Preservation Grant. You can repair housing occupied by low and very low income folks. Indian tribes and tribal housing authorities are eligible applicants under this program. It is a grant program, very popular, oversubscribed, not enough funding, but if you're able to get that funding, it's a really nice program. One of the pueblos in New Mexico that I've worked with, Cochiti Pueblo, applied for this, and you apply to your state office. The state will receive an allocation. In New Mexico, to give you an idea, roughly their allocation was about $50,000. They received a lot of applications. Cochiti Housing Authority used this money to do small rehabilitation to homes for elders within their community. One of the things that I know housing authorities that I spoke with like about this program is administration is an eligible cost under this program, which I know that many tribal housing authorities who are trying to do many things also are looking for costs to cover their admin. I don't know if this is an option within your community. I've talked to some tribes. Depending on the segment of population, it would be great if everybody could be a homeowner. Not everyone is ready to be a homeowner. And some tribes are looking at options of rental housing and providing some type of home opportunity for individuals within the reservation. Unfortunately, if we're looking at rental housing programs, this is the only program that has money right now in it. This is the Multifamily Housing Loan Guarantee Program, and it's basically working with lenders that are approved under USDA to work with the borrower, which is a tribe. The minimum term is 25 years and the maximum term is 40 years. And the interest rate is negotiated between the lender and the borrower. I've been talking with, we're hoping to do, I don't believe any of these, any tribe has taken advantage of this program to date. I am working with the San Felipe Housing Authority in New Mexico. If any of you know Isaac Pettis, who always goes after HUD and Title VI funding to build his housing projects. This might be an alternative that they're looking at, and I'd really like to see that happen. Because it's always lessons learned that we learn from setting up the deal, which will help facilitate future projects moving forward. Something to consider. So those are our housing programs, and the information is available in some of those handouts. One other program that I wanted to mention, and this came up during the HUD ONAP presentation, something to consider in terms of, we heard about the amount of money, perhaps, hopefully not, reduction in ICDBG monies. Rural Development has a loan program which provides for community facilities. And I know I want to congratulate the St. Regis Mohawk tribe up there. Recently had I think we're providing $14 million loan, right? Yep, for their tribal facility. So if you don't know, the St. Regis Mohawk tribe worked with the RD office, and they secured a low interest loan to build their new tribal administration facility. And I believe the project is at $14.5 million. But I believe that we provided a $14 million loan. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I actually am from the tribe, but I work for the housing
Okay.
authority.
Okay.
We just know.
Okay.
A little bit.
that facility, it's my understanding, is going to house 16 of their tribal programs, which is amazing. There's a youth and community center here at Nisqually Tribe utilize this program. I understand it's a loan program. But it's something to consider in light of kind of really uncertain times, right? With respect to funding, with respect to any type of federal budget, with respect to what level programs are going to be funded at. So I asked the national office in the different areas to give me an idea of where we're going to be at, and as you heard from HUD, we don't have a crystal ball, but this is a very popular program. A lot of non-tribal communities take advantage of this loan program. We would love to do more of these projects in Indian Country, and they can be used to fund a lot of essential community facilities. So, the way to look at it is the umbrella of health, public safety, education. I believe Mississippi Choctaw, we did a loan with them for their new several years ago, their health facility. And so it's something for tribes to consider. Very low interest loan. It can be complicated. We have, I love our programs, I love my job. One thing I failed to mention before I started on the programs is I am fairly new to USDA rural development. Actually, my background is working with Indian tribes, and I worked for my own tribe as a tribal law attorney, and I did some community organizing. So I understand how it can be challenging for tribes to try to find funding sources, to talk to many different people in agencies, to jump through many different regulatory hurdles. There are good people within the agencies, but I understand that some of our programs can be challenging. That doesn't mean that it's not possible to utilize the funding, where we have examples of that happening in Indian Country. So what that means is work closely with staff, and if not, call me or Ted. That's what we're here for, to try to bridge that gap and try to make more of these, bring more resources out into tribal communities. We have a direct loan, 40 years. Right now, the current interest rate is 3.37. So if you're looking at a fairly large project, multi-million-dollar project to fund, where are you going to get the money from? Is the tribe, is your tribe going to spend, $10 million on that tribal administration alone? Where else are you going to get the funds? We heard ICBIG. They can't fund, can you fund a $10 million project out of that? So it's just something to consider, and a really great option. There is grant available, and I talk about this program more as a loan program, because it truly is a loan program. I think people get excited when we say, oh, there's some grant involved. It's small. It's very, very small. And depending on the structure of the deal, it may include some grant. And then it also depends on what state office you're dealing with. So some state offices deal with their grant component a lot different than other state offices. So the state office where I work at, before the new community programs facility director came on, they would meet discrete grants. So police car or some equipment, $20,000 there. And I think the total amount they had for their grant was about $50,000 allocation. That's not just tribal, that's everybody in the state. That doesn't go a long way. So they've changed the way that they're looking at grant and really using it as an incentive to those who want to come in and do a loan project, and maybe that'll give some relief. So, just know that the information I'm providing you is general. It really, really behooves you to work with those rural development, state staff, and field office staff, because those individuals are going to be the ones on a day-to-day basis who are going to be processing the application, who are going to tell you if you're missing something, and who are basically going to be underwriting the loans. So it's really, really important to strike that understanding up with them. When I give trainings to our rural development staff, I tell them the other side of it. I say, part of it is getting to know the tribal communities that you work with, get to know them, how they do business, because a lot of times what I see is it's not that people don't want to work together and bring resources to a tribal community. I think that's what they agree, that they want to do that, right? We want to get the programs out there. The tribe wants the resources out there. I think sometimes we fail to sit down and get an understanding of, this is kind of how we do business. Help me understand how you do business. Let's see how we can work together to make that happen so that we don't have any misunderstandings. One of the other programs I like to talk about is water and waste disposal grants. This grant is very, very, very popular. This is also known as the Native American Set-Aside. So we have, under Rural Utility Service Programs, we have a WEP program, which is Water Environment Programs. This program is for construction of basic drinking water and waste disposal systems. Tribes can be applicants. It's 100% grant. Great program. Great for infrastructure. I'm trying to find my numbers here. Last year in fiscal year 16, the national office nationwide funded 19 programs at $25 million. This year, they funded 8 programs already, 8 projects already. The amount of projects that we're going to be able to do is dependent, of course, on the budget, the remaining budget what we get. So this program has become a very popular and oversubscribed program. And it's a great program. It's a great way to think about providing infrastructure in your community aside from tapping your HUD funds or IHS. So something to consider. In New Mexico, the Pueblo of Jemez use the set-aside to extend main lines to their future Pueblo Place housing subdivision. And then outside of our grant, we have the regular water and waste disposal loan and grant. Some tribes have taken advantage of that as well. And this is, low interest loan, finance up to 40 years, and there could be a grant combined with this. So it's something to consider depending on what your needs are of your existing community, but another viable way to be able to fund critical infrastructure within your communities. Just a quick slide on leveraging. I'm sure many of you would have something to teach me about leveraging funds. But unlike some other federal programs, our funds don't, as far as I know, have any limitation on being able to leverage our funds with other funding sources, which is very, very nice. I know that happens sometimes between IHS and the HOSDA. We love being a partner, not only with other federal programs, but also with private partnerships. We are trying to, as our community facilities program, and housing, are working really hard to work with native CDFIs. How many of you guys out there have utilized native CDFIs to fund some of your projects within tribal communities? Great thing to consider, great partnerships, great people out there who want to provide that access to capital within your communities. So just real quickly, some of the other opportunities to build assets within your communities for you to consider. Certified packaging, Rural Community Development Initiative grant, and Rural Business Development grant. So one thing that we've had our housing staff out of national office focus in on, and they provided a webinar through OWISTA, is to talk with the opportunity of getting more assets out into tribal communities, not only through our programs, but other means like becoming a certified packager. So a tribe or a TDHE, you guys know your clientele. People come into your door every time and they're looking for different options. You are our best resource. USDA will pay you for packaging. So it's a way for you to add some dollars to your admin and something to consider, especially if you already enjoy, well, not even if you already enjoy, but have a really great working relationship with rural development staff and can get trained. And there's a couple of avenues, and I will apologize for my tardiness in my presentation. It's not in your materials, but I think might be provided at a later time, so this information will be in there. It's fairly complicated structure here, and the different ways in which a tribe or TDHE could receive a permissible packaging fee. One is by certifying through an intermediary, without an intermediary, and this is if you become certified. And then you can also charge for packaging if you choose not to become certified, and the different fees that they have there. In New Mexico, there are also opportunities for a tribe or TDHE to receive permissible packaging fees for the 504 loan program as well. They're not as high as for the 502 direct program, but it's up to $500. Here's kind of the nuts and bolts of how to become a certified packager. And then in the next couple of slides, there will be some contacts. The contact folks who can answer your questions about this. If you're really interested in this, please contact me and I'll put you in contact with them about how to go about being a certified packager. There's also a process to become an intermediary that we have as well. Here's their contact information. The second program that I want to mention is the RCDI grant. This is under the umbrella of our community facilities program. It's a grant program and it provides financial and technical assistance. So tribes are eligible to receive this. And it's one of those kind of train the trainer type programs. Very popular program, oversubscribed, but you can use it in the areas of housing, community facilities, community and economic development. So it's something for you to consider. The way that this is delivered is, you apply to rural development for the program, the intermediary. So it's sort of like a three-legged stool. A private, nonprofit, or public can be a tribal organization. And then the recipient is the entity that receives the technical assistance. And then they go out and they provide that service out to the beneficiaries. So it's something to think about. I know probably many of you are doing counseling, fire readiness. Something like this could be used, especially if you do work with a good nonprofit. I know NeighborWorks is out there, Seven Sisters, I believe. So it's something to think about, and if you're interested in this, please contact me. This program is run out of the national office, but you submit through your state office. So just to give you a little idea of the grant range, it's been approximately $6 million, and the maximum grant request is $250,000. The minimum is $50,000. And it's important to note that there is a match involved here too, so which is equal to the amount that you're requesting for the grant. And you have 3 years for this. Oops. And as I mentioned, the eligible purposes: providing training like home ownership education, business entrepreneurship. And then one last program that I want to mention. This is under our rural business service programs, which is the Rural Business Development Grant. Because I know we're not only talking about housing and infrastructure, but also economic development. You can't have housing if you don't have jobs that allow people to be able to earn a wage, to be able to earn the house, and then so this is a really great program that is open to tribes. And I asked the question if a TDHE could apply, and I was told maybe. I would say yes, but maybe. But it's really great for projects that, looking for business opportunity or enterprise, and it's full grant. States do receive their own allocation, and those allocations vary. But with this program, there's a Native American set aside, sort of like the water program. So there's a specific pot of money, historically, that has been put aside for projects to fund in tribal areas. So it could be used to look at workforce development, feasibility studies for an economic venture. One thing I thought about is when I talk with some tribes, especially very remote tribes, the challenges they face trying to get certified contractors or inspectors out into their area. Maybe if your tribe, can work with your tribal economic development department or planner, and they can look at this as maybe seeing if it could be used to do an economic plan for developing that workforce. I don't know, just some thoughts out there to think about. My contact information, Ted's contact information. I don't know if anyone has any questions. As I said, I really appreciate the opportunity and appreciate the time that you've given me to present a little bit about our programs. We have a lot of different programs. So if you have questions, please let me know. We have telecommunication programs, energy programs. I'll be around all day, aside from some conference calls I have to get on. And so I look forward to meeting a lot of you and answering your questions and working with you in the future. Erica.
Thank you. One quick announcement. Oh, there is a question, Lynn.
On the 502 program, there's a statement that says unable to obtain a loan from other resources. Can you explain what would be required?
Yeah, so the way our programs work is we're supposed to be the lender of last resort, right? Can't go anywhere else. And I think, that's really when you work with a loan specialist. If you can't really qualify for funding. But
Don't you just get a letter from a local lender saying?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, pretty much. It's
Saying this
So I'll tell you, the loan specialists that I work with in our office, they're not gonna have you go and get like 5 letters or prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you can't, that this applicant isn't eligible for a loan. They are pretty flexible in terms of how they work with applicants, yeah.
I just had a quick question about the forms and resources portion. It says to contact the housing program specialist. So each one of them, are they familiar already with a lot of our tribes? Or is this one of those things where we need to also educate them, talk to them about how we work through this? Or is it, if we have issues, just explaining like our structures, how everything's done, we contact you or your office to kind of help with that person? I'm just kind of curious how that works. So.
Yep, great question, and the answer is it depends.
Okay.
So there are folks who are familiar. So within every state, there is a state office. There are also field offices, right, which service different regions of that state. Some folks may be familiar with tribal communities within their state, and some may not. What rural development has started to do, I guess, is to provide training and education to our rural development staff. Last year, and prior to this, you know, the Ted Bulow, who's great as a National Native American coordinator, is one person. He's stationed out in Denver, Colorado, and he provides a lot of that service. And then Tony Hernandez brought me on board to help out with this. One of the things that we were doing, and we did last year, is as an agency, they made a commitment, which also means dollars, right? Which I want to say that I think, you know, in light of where we're at with the budget, I was able to come out here, travel to come out here to talk to you about our programs, which I think shows a level of commitment and interest to want to do more with tribal communities. So last year in June, Rural Development, Rural Housing Service put on the first training for its rural development housing staff, which was focused on tribal lending. And it wasn't just focused on, and Bob Gochi, who many of you know, was there and presented to RD staff. But we talked about several issues that I think sometimes come up in some of the transactions, which is the unfamiliarity of a tribe and their organization, their land status, and the complicated nature of it, and how to, even though our programs may work with individual borrowers, that one of the most important things that we can do in terms of housing is have a better relationship with our tribal housing authorities, right? And to utilize them as a resource. So we had that training last year. We are going to build upon that and do a series of webinars for our staff, focused specifically on tribal lending, not only in rural housing programs, but community facilities, water, business, to deal with what are some common issues that come up, what are some best practices. So if you have any suggestions for what we can do to communicate this to staff, that's one thing we're working towards to do. So it depends. Some staff will not know anything about your tribal community. Some staff will, and some states have Native American coordinators. If you're in a situation where you need help, that's where Ted and I come in. That's our job, really, to try to work together and bridge that gap. And I know that there are sometimes sensitive issues, which Ted and I can deal with, so we're here as an additional resource.
regard to accessing the programs, USDA uses that the tribe has to apply for all programs, and TDH cannot apply to programs direct. And TDHEs have governmental documents that authorize them to operate the housing programs on behalf of the tribe. I would encourage you to, at least for the housing programs, make TDHEs eligible to apply direct. That would open up that program for a lot of entities. And it removes a layer that you have to go through when you're trying to make applications to and leverage all the funding packages and cafeterias that you have together. I'd encourage you to take that back to the national level and make that a priority for housing.
So what do you normally have to do? Have a development arm of your housing
Work
authority?
with the tribal council, work with the tribal grant writer. When you have a TDHE, if you're able to apply direct, you're able to do that right in-house. You all have your own DUNS number, your own SAMs. Already, the tribe has done that in many cases, but you can't apply direct to programs. You still have to go through the tribe, which I see as a barrier.
And I appreciate that comment, and I have worked with that, and I know that that happens in Indian country. That's been, unfortunately, because of where we're at right now in terms of the transition and what's going to happen. So we do have a new secretary. Secretary Perdue was sworn in last night. So we'll see what happens. But I do know that's something that Ted and I have talked with national office and the former administrator about and program staff about is really the challenges of accessing our program funds, right? And how can we find avenues to bring funding to other entities who might be eligible without having to go to Congress and amend any type of regulations and or legislation. And or go through OMB too. So some proposals were developed late last administration to kind of look at that. I've been asked by the single family housing administrator Joyce Allen to try to look at the 502 direct program and see if there's some other ways within the parameters of law to be able to make this happen. So I appreciate you offering that comment. Is something that we are very aware of. I think we can do a better job with respect to programs where there might be program areas where in the past TDHEs have been able to apply or utilize a different program, and training staff that even though it may not say it right here within the corners of the document, that in the past TDHEs have been eligible for that program, therefore they can, this new TDHE who wants to do this project, if it's been done before, why can't we do it again, right? So I think that's what I'm trying to say. So, but I think that's the other end of educating program staff and Ted and I working through these webinars to bring some uniformity and consistency across our programs, which there isn't, really, right? There isn't. Thank you. Yep.
Oh, sorry, I just have one more question. Sure. I'm just kind of confused on who may apply for the program. So I'm just using these as examples.
Sure.
We're talking about the housing preservation grants and the water and waste disposal grants. So if a tribe, let's say, creates other entities underneath it, is it only the designated TDHE or will be eligible for, or can they create any type of nonprofit 7187, array, or it's underneath the Section 17 tribal entity?
Right.
Can you explain that a little bit?
So I'm going to give you the other answer I gave you last time when you asked me a question. It depends, but it's possible, right? It depends, and if that's something that you're thinking about, call me and Ted, because what we can do is work with program staff to help them understand that just because it doesn't look like an apple, that it isn't an apple, right? I mean, I think, like I said before, we have great agency staff, but sometimes people, if it doesn't look like what they've done in the past before, they may not be, they may not be familiar with it. Ted and I work a lot with folks to help them understand that because of my background. I understand. My tribe see that. You can have a Section 17 corporation. You can have a tribally chartered corporation. It's not the tribe per se, but it's an arm of the government. So why wouldn't they be able to be eligible? So that's what we're there for, and so it depends. And we've seen instances where it has happened.
There's been many a times where we've reached out at a local level and a state level. They didn't quite understand how Indian country was, so we would reach out to Ted, his predecessor, Dave Safford. And we actually brought all of our tribes in Michigan and introduced them to all of their state staff. This is your boss, by the way, that deals with the native stuff. If you have a question, call him up. And that was tremendous. They started coming to all our housing authority offices even. So it worked really well.
Thank you, everyone.